So my apologies about that, but we're going to get started on the recording now. And much interesting has occurred, so take it away, Kath.
Thank you, Jonathan. I love the question, Maya, for us to locate us on the map. I also feel that this could actually be a learning challenge, or like a journey in a way for us, so that we don't go through all the steps in one session, but actually give ample space for people to share and maybe even walk through the steps. That was one idea that came up as well. Very, very exciting. I haven't seen the map before. I need also the roadmap, and it rings so true in the steps that I even see that I started at the wrong point, for instance. It's very interesting. I would love to have a conversation or a dialogue about it. Thank you.
So would you like to put it up again, Maya, just and kind of start at the top? And, maybe people will say where they find themselves on the path. William?
So maybe I'll read each one, and I don't know if people want to say, but actually, Poem, you have your hand up.
Yeah. I just wanted to respond. For one, to Kath, you mentioned that of spending some time on each step. I think that's important. So when I took the little mini course, she sent each one in a separate email so that you could take the time. She had some descriptions about it. You do some journaling about that step. And part of that, which is already present in this conversation, and I'm actually very curious about the presencing exercise that was mentioned, because there is this emergent thing that we're looking for. If the first steps you take, we really are looking for something underlying, right? We're really looking for something inside. And so if you have some like false assumptions or some sort of like hangups or whatever you want to call them in those first steps, they can lead you in the wrong direction very easily. And I'm finding this very difficult push-pull between sort of where, like, what I think I should be doing versus like what my heart wants, and this belief that I have that I can't make a living through doing what my heart wants. So that's definitely very present for me. And I'll leave it there. There was something else I wanted to say, but it's eluding me, so I think that's plenty.
Well, feel free to come back to it. I think other people feel much the same way about the challenges of making a living. I mean, it's such an odd phrase. Buckminster Fuller kept pointing out that, it's not really, it shouldn't really be necessary for human beings to make a living for themselves. They should be entitled to a living, especially since we have the tools and the technologies to provide a life of abundance and prosperity for everyone. We just haven't decided to do it collectively. Now, people can debate that, but the whole idea, I just started reading his very last book. Again, I'm sure I read it before, about switching from weaponry to livingry. Now, but he, engaged in a very precarious and risky business and failed many times over. So I'm not sure that he's the best role model for us to look at in terms of finding ourselves. But given the I want to think of, in terms of the urgency of the situation that we face on the earth, and ask if there isn't an impulse in that urgency to find something practical to do kind of right away. Like, I imagine that if I were in Ukraine right now, I wouldn't have too many questions about what I should be doing with my life. I'd be doing the things that were appropriate to do in the midst of a crisis, in the midst of an ongoing conflict. And some people like Bill McKibben have suggested that we ought to think of the climate crisis using a World War III model, and I'm not convinced of that. But there is a sense in which being in the midst of a crisis and acknowledging it does seem to provide a clarity around the immediate actions that we ought to be taking. And so I wonder if that's true for other people. Andy.
Yeah, I thought of that immediately when you said that perhaps that Buckminster Fuller may not be a great role model in terms of the risks that he took. And my immediate thought was that, yeah, there is risk involved in this actually, and I think they're baked in to some degree because as we've all acknowledged, the sort of the path to right livelihood is not easily available. It's not it's definitely not a given. It's quite difficult, and so you've actually got to take quite a few risks in order to put yourself on it. You're leaving a lot of other things behind, and shifting the one main thing that you have to invest in life, which is your attention, and your decision making, and so yeah, I do feel that risk is a very, very big part of this, and I think that acceptance of risk does, in many ways can come from lots of different places, but one of them is that sense of collapse. I was talking to chatting with Joel Krieger earlier in the week, and we were talking about how in the sort of seeming like peace, of this world, for many people, that looking after your family means, going to that day job and bringing home an income and and yet I'm so skeptical that is truly looking after your family. It feels as if there's a conflict between looking after your family or kind of doing those responsible things and following your heart. And I'm totally I would like to just gently upturn that boat, because it feels to me that in the midst of collapse, following our heart is the most responsible thing that we could be doing, because it is the route to, I don't know, we all know, something better for all of us. Yeah. So I just want to say that.
Thank you. Kath?
Yes, Andy. As simple as it is. Risk is a funny word. I think this is why I raised my hand, even though I want to share so many more other things, but I want to stick to my original thought is risk in a world of collapse is a funny thing, I would say. Where I don't know. I guess I have learned that there are no certainties in life, and thanks to reading Hospicing Modernity, I have learned that this mindset of certainty or seeking certainty is an illusion, is a trap of modernity that is one of the many things that shifted my mindset. And I don't know, my life feels constantly on the edge of my comfort zone. And like, it's like this concentric circle, I feel, and I'm just dancing on the edge to kind of like grow in all the direction. And one thing I have learned, especially over the past 1.5 months, I would say 6 weeks, is I think sometimes we mistake risk with vulnerability. And I have learned in the past 6 weeks in particular that if I am honest with myself and tell from my experience and tell my truth and be vulnerable from my heart, so yeah, and with all the integrity I have, it is a risk in a way, but actually it is not a risk, because I start to show up differently, and out of that there were so many possibilities have how do you say, arisen came up. And it's beautiful. It is a beautiful experience to kind of like see what can emerge when I just show up with all that I have. Yeah. Perception of risk can so easily be an illusion. So getting comfortable with uncertainty gives you such more solid ground to work with. Thank you, Andy. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's what I was holding. Thank you.
That's very beautiful. Thank you so much for that. And, you know, it reminds me in some ways of the conversations that Victoria and I have had, or I should probably say used to have more often than we do now, about creating some kind of security, because there really is no security in life, no matter what you do. And, I think we're finally have accepted that. And it's not that we aren't looking to provide more for ourselves and for our family and for our friends and the people we know around us. But it's, I don't think that we have, I think we've given up the sense that there is some kind of final thing to be found in that department. So, but it's always a question of, making choices day by day and seeing what is, what's demanded of us today. Shane?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm just maybe give us another 10 seconds or so of silence just to let all that settle a little. Sometimes silence is a really good conversation. I really appreciate these thoughts on risk and uncertainty and security, and I feel like what has to come into the conversation at some point is risk's alter ego, opportunity, and even reward. And I feel like this is what I saw on the pathway documents. I just want to just use these words again. Start with the end in mind. Think about, well, where you're aiming. Cultivate an audacious vision for a regenerative future for Gaia, your beloveds, and yourself. And that's pretty challenging, this notion of an audacious vision. And I think I'm maybe this is a part of the path that I feel I struggle with a great deal, partly because I have trouble entertaining dreams. I'm pretty good at shutting them down, even. I get back up again. Because there's risks, because there's uncertainties and costs. Costs come in too, but I guess the part I'd like to explore in myself really is finding again this end, the vision, and what would help through, not through, but to deal with the risks, to just face them and accept the uncertainties, and go forward thinking that there's still a chance of getting to this end point. A chance that this audacious vision for a regenerative future for Gaia, your beloveds, and yourself is a possibility. Over.
I think one of the remarkable things about Joe Brewer is that he stands as a kind of icon for exactly what you just said. And for so many of us, he's such an inspiration because he's living his life out loud and living it with others, and using everything that he knows and bringing it to the table and being totally audacious about it. As he keeps saying, he's just making it up as he's going along. It's working. And he's not necessarily even taking credit for it. He's interested in how it works, but that's so wonderful. William?
Yeah, thanks. I really appreciate the conversation. One of the words that really, from your question that you started with, Jonathan, around whether this sort of collapse can catalyze change, I think, I can paraphrase, the word that kept sort of sticking in my mind was crisis. I had oh shoot. Sorry. Sorry about that. I have a Sorry about that. My phone connects to my headset and I was having problems. So I recently in the last couple of years had a major shift in the way that I've been thinking about our current sort of global crisis collapse. You know, and suddenly felt much better, much better about it. Not that it's not happening or that there isn't a tremendous like amount of sorrow or pain associated with it, but and I could go more into that, but really thinking of this crisis not as that this is a crisis and that we have to do something to change it, but it's a crisis like you would have any like this, like a crisis of thought. It's like a crisis of the way that we think about the world, a crisis of culture, and that, you know, often when we have a crisis of any kind, it's because of the way that we're thinking about it. We don't have a frame for it that works for us in some kind of way. And that if we can look at it from a different vantage point or viewpoint, it's no longer a crisis. It might still be painful or difficult, but we know what it is. We know what to do. I don't know if I'm making sense. I think that, you know, having that crisis of awareness, that kind of what like Andy was talking about, it's no longer okay for me to continue going on with my life and not listen to my heart anymore. That's the crisis. Or to know that people are going to be in terrible sort of anguish and despair, and I can't sort of do something to address that. Yeah.
I think that makes an incredible amount of sense. So please, Andy.
I raised my hand a while back, and I've been transported to different places. Yeah, that was a beautiful poem. I think it. Yeah, I felt like it made an incredible amount of sense, and yeah, I feel the same way. It's no longer okay not to be following my heart, and was it ever okay? I don't know, but like, yeah. I think I raised my hand because I wanted to say something about that first path on, you know, place on the road. Jonathan, you've mentioned a couple of times that the sort of there is no kind of end to arrive at. So I did have trouble with that word end when I read it, but then when I read what was underneath, I was like, oh yes, like yes. And I think one of the joyous things about finding this community for me was the sense that people are envisioning a audacious, you know, audaciously envisioning a you know, a more beautiful world our hearts know is possible, and just saying we can go there, you know. It's you know, if we don't say in our hearts we can go there and we are going there, well, we won't, you know. So I do think that, and I think that was slowly awakened in me by just listening to people who had the same, like, you know, like Joe and like many others, you know, who had the same kind of feeling that, yeah, we just need to imagine into this. Well, not just need to, that's the wrong way to put it, but yeah, we need to imagine into it, and with our whole hearts, and I feel so much joy being around people who do that. And yeah, because I think that that sort of collective energy of, you know, the huts doing that at the same time gives us so much. And yeah, we're not going to an end place with that. But it does feel really important in, even in a sort of like, just in the sort of personal, organizational sort of design sphere of, you know, like working out what to do to make a right livelihood, that needs to be in our hearts, you know, and be the thing that pulls those decisions into a sort of an alignment of beauty. Yeah, I don't know if I got much more than that, but I'm just so enjoying this conversation.
Well, that's really great. I did want to share something, but before I do that, I want to hear what Maya has to say. So I've written my thought down, so I'll come back to it. Maya.
I don't mind if you want to go first, Jonathan.
Oh,
Do you want to go ahead?
well, you know, what occurred to me as we were speaking, I don't know how many people have read the History of Scientific Revolutions, the famous Thomas Kuhn book about paradigm shifts, but I found it a very helpful framework to understand that if we look at why we're in this question about what's a right livelihood, what does the earth need, it's because the answers that we have been given up until now by the system that we were brought up in are no longer working. And so the crisis is a crisis that forces us to shift our perspective to the extent that we actually start asking different questions. Because unless we do that, if we keep trying to answer the same old questions, we discover that you know, our civilization has kind of run out of answers, and yet we're left with the harm that's been done, that it is now our job to restore, to heal, to deal with, and it still doesn't provide us with answers as to what our purpose should be, what we're doing here, what, you know, the kind of the framework in which we operate has begun to alter so profoundly that many people in this community find it hard to speak to people who haven't had that shift occur for them, that they're still living inside of the paradigm of, you know, modern Western culture, and, you know, spending their time watching television and, you know, going to work and making, you know, $20 an hour or something, doing menial work. It's those things, to the extent that people find that that is no longer satisfying, they're no longer willing to do it, the crisis occurs that shifts the entire focus for us. And I just found that whole framework very useful because it enabled me to let go of trying to answer some questions that I had before, and just realize that those really, even if I found the answers, it wouldn't help. So the questions that I needed to ask were different, and that's kind of led me to this site, which I, again, think is a wonderful community. So Maya?
I have to take a breath because like we could talk for an hour about every sentence every person has said. And so it's like, I have so many responses, but I'll go with the latest thing that came in, was that maybe it's a crisis of creativity, that for a long time, before I was even really like immersed in the grokking of the sort of planetary predicament kind of thing, I was aware that so many people were on a right livelihood question and were so confused about what to do with their lives. And I realized that the reason that so many people have trouble knowing what to do is that it hasn't been invented yet. and that we all are being called to invent it, like to invent, what does my heart do in this universe? And the image that always comes to me when I think of, well, not always, but I think of the heart. And since I'm on the screen sharing mode, I'll share. Oh, why is this not showing up? Let me get to the page. Let me try that again. Is the toroidal flow of the heart. And that not only is a toroidal flow of the heart, it's a toroidal flow of our whole body. It's a toroidal flow of the galaxy. It's, you know, that it's fractal. And that this idea of the end place, like, where is the end place? I mean, and this center is sort of, in my mind, that place where we align with the heart, and that it's always this process of going through like that whole map. Like, if I was to put myself on the map that we're looking at, I literally feel like I'm from that first stage is like, what is that core inspiration? And then going full circle around, it's like, right now in my life, I feel like I'm between the campfire and the first step. And I go in this loop, and it's a matter of, okay, how does that reach out? How do I be audacious enough to put out the thing and charge money or do what I need to do to come full circle with what it is that I have to offer, and get more clear about that in the process. So, yeah, and so I'm going to be audacious and share a link to one of the things that I feel like I have to offer into the space here. And I think many of you know that I did this presentation that I've shared this link before. I deconstructed, how did Adyashanti's community grow? Actually, I deconstructed what made his retreats the most powerful form of his teaching. And in deconstructing that, it was like, oh, I identified, like, what is this living organism of a community growing? Or like, I'm still trying to get, what is this thing that I saw and I identified? And I feel like, and it relates also to my other related inquiry about my own creative process and what's involved in that. So as my final audacious act of sharing what I have to share, I want to say that one of the really beautiful keys to the creative process in service of the heart, I'll just put it that way, and you reminded me of when you said, like, align with beauty, or some words like that. And so the first step is align, to align with that core inspiration at the center of the torus. And then ask, what next? From this place of alignment, what does my heart, mind, hands in combination know? What is the next thing? And then act to do the thing. And you do it, and then you get back into alignment. What next? And it's so simple, but it's super powerful. So I just want to share that. Thank you for listening.
That is so great. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Can I just squeeze
Yeah.
in and
Oh,
just
sure.
say something
Immediate
quickly?
response.
In that, thank you, Maya. That was really beautiful. But in that process of aligning, asking, doing, some of those steps can sometimes feel so hard, even though maybe they're not hard. They can feel so hard sometimes.
What a beautiful bridge poem. What a beautiful bridge. Thank you. Maya, I want to celebrate your audaciousness. Go, sister, go. I hear you. I also want to name that you are the third or fourth person in the last 6 days, in my experience, who names the toroidal field. I just want to speak to that, I guess, signals from the universe I'm receiving. And I'm curious of what emerges from all of that. Yeah, I think poem to what you said, that it is so challenging. 100%. This journey is and always will be an inner and outer journey for all of us, in order to, I don't know, I see, I'm starting to learn that my body is just as an ecosystem as everything around me, and we are just mirrors for each other. And yeah, I keep on coming back to Buckminster Fuller for some reason, especially after I saw the toroidal field again, as in, that's our galaxy, that's the universe, that's the laws of nature. And he, in my heart, he has figured out a way how to tap into that as a conscious human being and allow ourselves to come together in different ways, that we get organized synergistically. And I think the toroidal field is part of it. I think what Buckminster Fuller and sacred geometry gives us is part of it. And I'm like really, really excited to explore it in the, I think that's what excites me. And it's probably part of that tapping into the heart and having that audacious vision. In syntropic word, it's called evolutionary purpose. And if I think about that, we are, I don't know, 8 billion people on this planet, it actually really excites me that it doesn't take all 8 billion people to step into this different way of being and being conscious. And I'm glad to be here with all of you who kind of, I think, at least in some parts, feel the same.
Yes, that is so wonderful. I think it just takes the next generation to step into this new way of being, and the culture will be dramatically transformed. I think we don't generally acknowledge how fast things really are changing, and what the potential is, what the possibilities are. It's wonderful. Andy?
Yeah, I when you were talking about where you are on that path, I realized I'd identified the same thing, that that I was at the sort of the campfire stage, and yet that meant that I was also at every stage before that at the same time, so, and I was trying to, and there's in the sense that I think there is a linear journey there, but it's also non-linear in the way that you move back into the previous things, but you're still moving forward. And I was trying to picture that in my mind, and then when you brought up that toroidal field, I was like, oh wow, like as a pattern, it's so beautiful. It also reminded me and made me wonder how that the pattern of nested holes, that we are, as evolutionary creations in it ourselves, we are beautiful wholes nested within other beautiful wholes nested within other, you know, in a sort of an incredible complexity of depth that just goes on, and there's a movement of all of them at once. I mean, like, this is getting a bit cosmic, I guess, but it's like, yeah, it actually feels like the same movement when you're looking at, you know, a right livelihood. You just got to get into that movement with your own decision making, and yeah, and it when you do, it feels wonderful. Like it's and it's so often just relational, just about other people and love and other creatures and love and other and love, blah blah blah. Yeah, so I find this very, very rich and beautiful. Lisa?
Hi, sorry, searching for that unmute button again. Yeah, I have to go soon, but I wanted to kind of just share something before I go, or ask a general question. I think Jonathan and Maya really hit the nail on the head for me by emphasizing that finding the right livelihood is so challenging because it's something new that we have to do, and that I don't want to say that we have to do it together, but I think we'll do it better together. I've been playing with the idea in my mind for a while. I probably will reach out to you, Andy, about bringing it to the project incubator eventually. I'm in my 20s, and for me and my friends and loved ones, rent is like a huge obstacle. I mean, I can imagine that it's an obstacle for anybody at any stage in their life, but you know, and it really makes me super sad to see such like structural obstacles that people face that prevent them from having time or space or even the right community for finding their right livelihood and being able to do that search within themselves. I know that this is a topic that's come up, but so my idea was that surely the resources that people need must be out there. And part of what I was hoping this group maybe could help me figure out is like how to make this an actionable thing that I can help people with, like, so that we, you know, like not just me, but we can help others, and you know, ranging in when I say resources, I mean, you know, there are interpersonal resources that I think are really, really strong, that can be kind of offered and or even broadcasted, you know, as kind of like use us as a resource, like, but also like almost my mind also goes to the super practical, and it's like, who has a space where, you know, who has a space in this location that somebody can use to live in and contribute in some sort of barter system, contribute some talent of theirs or some capacity of theirs to receive the support to take care of some basic needs. Anyway, this is, you know, I hear so much hope and like desire in this group, and my tendency is like, I want to do something to make it happen. So anyway, I wanted to put that out there. I wanted to know if that excites anybody, and what your thoughts are about what I've said.
I think it resonates very strongly with me in connection with the work that we're doing in the fundraising side of this, trying to make Earth Regenerators an economic engine in itself that can help, you know, where we can help support each other in the work of healing the planet and healing ourselves. And it's really kind of unique in that sense, because most of the groups and communities and organizations that I'm a part of don't attempt anything that audacious. But Joe is unstoppable in his willingness to do this stuff. And most recently, and if you all haven't experienced this, you should check it out, using this Gitcoin grant application process to bring people into the entire world of cryptocurrency and turn the whole economic system on its head effectively. And do it, you know, just acknowledging all of the challenges and difficulties, and still inviting people to step forward and put their shoulder to the wheel. And I think that's what we're going to be doing with Vivero as well. And then challenging us to find ways to support the work that needs to get done. And, you know, when you look around, it's amazing to me that there is so much work that is needed. There's no shortage of work. We're not going to run out of jobs for human beings anytime soon. And yet, you know, we allow our system to create this thing called unemployment. We don't kind of see the absurdity sometimes of what we are allowing ourselves to live with. So enough of that, Kath.
I love it, Jonathan. Thank you. I think I said it yesterday somewhere that I personally celebrate the unemployment rates at the moment, because on the other side, we have also a huge amount of jobs available. And so, you know, I'm just celebrating the fact that is what is actually lying in between, that the people are not responding anymore to the job market. And that excites me a lot, which I believe comes from a hard place, at least in my case. And so, yeah, I wanted to take the opportunity to, Lisa, to invite you and everyone else to the Project Incubator next week, because it will be the soft launch for the Vivero app. And it will be a teach-in hosted by Todd and JP. And I think, there is a very first practical step we can all take, and go to the Project Incubator next week. Thank you.
Maya?
Thank you for noting that. I'll hopefully be able to go. And I don't have anything to say except just that I'm curious. We have about 15 minutes left, and I'm curious at some point between now and the end to hear if Victoria can get on screen and share any thoughts. No rush, but if we hear from you, I'd appreciate that. Oh, there she is. Haha. And Jonathan, you're muted.
I just want to make sure that we don't do anything that's going to cause a feedback. Are you good? Can you turn off that thing? And
Sure, yeah. What I was just struck with was, hi, everybody, was Lisa's conversation. And I used to be in the kind of career world, job placement, outplacement, you know, love to find new jobs because I was either getting fired or leaving jobs because because I didn't fit into the way that work is usually done. So I am if I hadn't told you, I just discovered I have ADHD, and I've always had it. And it is the reason why I've been fired 3 times, and then at the other end, I'm at the top, and I've kind of understood what makes for a good environment for me. But I think that, Lisa, this is maybe there's a time, it's an opportunity to reinvent the career world, because the way the career help world is all about finding jobs in those little niches, you know, for the most part. That's what people come out of it, you know, when they leave one job and they're looking at the next, it's always to get back into that same world, and most people probably don't want to. So I think Earth Regenerators could eventually create something like that, where take people through the thinking process of what does it mean to regenerate your community? Where are the areas that need to be literally regenerated, like the people in Barichara are doing for the water system? I don't think most people think about that. When enough people who have different skills and qualities, you know, can come together in a community and say, where do we need to restore something and create jobs for people? There's a ton of money coming down the pike in the United States from this new IRA Act, and you know, communities are trying to figure out what to do with the money to create jobs, etc. It's a great opportunity to put the things that we've been talking about in Earth Regenerators into some form to give people a sense of what else is out there, what's possible. So there are people who are really good at identifying a project, putting structure around it, looking for a grant, getting stakeholders. You just have, you know, you put together a team of people, but you have to figure out what's the, you know, what are the assets that we need to create? You know, what are the degraded assets or something like that? I don't know if that kind of gives you something, Lisa, but there is work to be done in helping other people see what we naturally have been seeing, that most people don't see as opportunity.
Yeah, maybe we could have a conversation about that one-on-one sometime, because you brought up a lot of new stuff for me. And then also you were just, when you made me start imagining like us having an internal, I don't want to say jobs board, but like an Earth Regenerators, like, you know, community like board, and then we could have our own currency and like pay each other for having fun. Anyway, yeah, I would love to talk more about that, but you know, maybe not.
Right, yeah, I
In
love
our-
to have a conversation. I'm not much on the feedback, but if Jonathan can get you my email, and or it's probably posted up. I just haven't been keeping up with the internal message boards kind of thing. So, thank you.
Sounds good.
But it was great to listen. It sounds a bit theoretical, and I think all of us who are in the space of reinventing ourselves, it's easier to think about the generalities. But I think this conversation about risk and security, it's a really important conversation for all of us to realize that really are there any really alternatives to taking those risks now or later? And if we do it now, maybe we can meet people who are good at the things we're not good at and create meaningful opportunities locally or across the world. So yeah, I definitely have gone through many transformations to where I am now compared to where I was when I was in the job world. Oh my God, Jonathan could tell you. I mean, I can't believe I was in that for so long, and I really thought that was more real than the stuff that we're talking about. I don't know how to translate it for others, but you know, someday I think I might have a role in making that, because I was really addicted to the idea of having a job and income coming in from somebody else, and the financial risk of it all. And you know, I'm so different now. It's amazing. But I wouldn't recommend that you do what we do, because
It's too insecure.
Very,
Uh,
what I used to
and-
consider totally insecure. Crazy.
Right, right, completely on the edge,
Yeah.
potentially, even though we're not in a day-to-day struggle for survival.
Right. But I
Um,
think in the last few minutes, I think it'd be good to figure out what's next. So
Right.
what people are finding useful, what would bring people into the group, or what would keep us coming?
Kath, you wanna,
I can't answer your last question, Victoria, so apologies for that. I wanted to build real briefly on what you shared earlier before that and in your conversation with Lisa, because yeah, the future I envision is indeed syntropic and it doesn't have any roles, where I can just show up as myself, as Cass, and there will be tasks. Like, you know, and I'm reminded of my favorite beekeeper, Darren, who shares how bees are being, how they're organized. Like, they don't understand themselves as a scout bee. They don't know, oh, hi, I'm a scout, right? That's the name we give them, but they have a certain task to fulfill. And this is how I feel we will, yeah, organize ourselves and come together and learn how to organize in a new way around tasks and not around, yeah, particular roles or a job necessarily. And I think, yeah, this whole idea of roles and jobs is obviously part of modernity. And yeah, the future I envision will be outside that. And I'm telling myself that I will experience that. So it's not too far off, I want to say. Thank you.
well, and I wanna say Earth Regenerators is wide open as a structure for making this happen. You know, it's just astonishing in a way as to what is possible here that has not been possible in any other group or organization or community that I've ever been a part of. That sees things clearly and says, yes, we can't solve the problems for each other overnight, but we can put some things in process that will, you know, really provide us with opportunity. I mean, Vivero has the potential, as I think Rachel said the other day, if we actually got all 4,000 people putting in $10 a month, you know, we'd probably be working with $500,000. I don't, you know, I haven't done the math, so I don't know for sure, but you know, it's enough to really start a movement to employ each other to make this go further, faster, wider, everywhere. But that's me getting on my soapbox about what's possible. And the question is just really what, you know, what's the opportunity that people can see and take advantage of in the community and build it further. Andy.
Yeah, I'm thinking about Victoria's question about where we might go next, and also Poem's something he said earlier about the difficulty of engaging with people, that he got to that point on the roadmap and entered into a sort of a loop, and I'm wondering whether or not we can engage with that. I mean, I think there's a natural looping that is perfectly fine, but there's a kind of like a stalling that can happen, I think, when we're struggling to sort of make those connections and get the energy flowing in a really creative and interesting and engaging way. And I was just thinking about possibilities, and I don't have any answers or anything. I guess I just wanted to provoke and the maybe possible things that we could work on together in looking at this roadmap, and as Kath said earlier, sort of taking a learning journey on these, you know, using this roadmap, perhaps. And one of the things that stands out for me is perhaps that could be a sort of a session or a sort of a focus for a little while or something like that, would be maybe the art of invitation. That really realizing that invitation really is a creative art form, and a beautiful art form. And I think it's kind of there's a sort of a spiritual practice to it almost. And that's something that really interests me, and that might feed into where we go with all of this. But I'm actually just saying that to sort of see if what other people's ideas might be.
Well, thank you. And, I do want to pick up on the fact that Poyam said he would be interested in going through the process with Maya. So I would propose to do that next time. And the only question I have is, do we do it a month from now on this, in this time frame, which is probably, what we've been doing, and the alternate session, which will happen 2 weeks from now, later in the day, we'll perhaps take a different track altogether. We could do the map in that group, because it'll be likely a different group or overlapping somewhat.
Well, Maya, how much time would you want to do with Poyam, and is there time to do step 1 or something like that? Or is it just one thing that's better?
Yeah, I don't know, when she does it, it's the full 90-minute session just for the thing. So it's just shorter. Last time we ended up with about half an hour for other things. It could be short. I don't know how to answer the question. I don't have enough experience because I feel like there is time needed to explain the process, to get everyone to know what is it that we're going for, and then open the space and hear a full story. And so.
No, I think it doesn't fit. So and you know what? I haven't even read the article. I haven't looked at the map. So I'm just talking generically. So it doesn't fit. Okay.
But can we align on that being the plan for next month? And we'll try and get, I think you probably want to have a conversation with Poyam ahead of time, or at least we want to set this up, or not necessarily.
Well, he would just need to know, the process, people don't need to be prepared ahead of time. They can just tell their story. And the way that, as I mentioned in the email, that among a couple of us, that the way that the woman who I learned from, she just has everyone show up, and who wants to be in the circle from a much larger group. And of those people, the 7 people that are either coaches or the warm seat, it's like, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how eager are you to share, to be in the warm seat? And that warm seat is my word for it. And then on the count of 3, and then you see who has the most number of fingers up, or is it just one? And the person with the most fingers, they go. And it's actually a really nice kind of way to do it, because then somebody else is more eager than you are, or vice versa. And so there's different ways of approaching it. But so people don't know ahead of time if they're going to do it.
Well, just as I've been kind of manipulating the event each time and kind of changing the picture and, trying out some different ideas, could you put together something that we could put to really give people a sense of what's going to happen next month, and how we invite people to come and participate?
I have to just be honest and say, well, you asked me to do that like a couple months ago and I didn't. And it's just like, I have to name it. It's not in me to do it. We have the link from the last thing with the recording, and maybe we can just link to the recording, because I don't want to promise something and then not deliver. That's like, it theoretically, I'd love to do it, but yeah.
So, all right, maybe offline, we'll be in touch about other ways in which I can present the process so that, people can know what we're going for.
And you know what? I can copy what Unique, the lady that I learned from. I'll see what her blurb is.
Great. That would be very helpful. Kat?
Thank you. I wanted to respond briefly, Andy, to this whole idea of going through the roadmap. And I feel there is something beautiful that could emerge here. I feel there's a synergy here, poem knowing this lady, but also struggling to be of service at the moment. And maybe that is a learning journey he can invite us into, instead of us trying to squeeze it into the space here right now. I actually, I think it is also, of course, dependent on the relationship with the creator of the material, but I could see that we would be a pretty amazing case study maybe for them. And so I see a lot of synergies here, and I guess I wanna offer that, I will reach out to Poyam and kind of see how this lands with the synergies I'm seeing, and maybe, it can be, something more substantial than we actually initially thought, especially you, Jonathan, when you found it, I guess. I would love to give that a try. That's me. Thank you.
All right. Any last words from folks?
I love, Maya, what you put there. I think that's terrific. Can we use it?
Is that enough? You could just change the week, just say one, edit it a tiny bit.
It's really great.
Great.
So just to reiterate, in 2 weeks, are we going to look at the path?
Yeah.
And then in 4 weeks at this time, we're gonna do Poyam, or whoever is the most interested.
Eager at the moment. Yes. Great. Thank you so much. It's really, I'm very grateful for people being willing to engage in this conversation as deeply as you all are, and how much this matters. So until next time.
Yeah, I just want to acknowledge you and Jonathan and Victoria. I think all of us in the space here know what it is to create a space for something to happen. And so just thank you for being the ones to make that space for us all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really, it's mostly
Much gratitude.
It's mostly
I'm
your
just going
ideas.
through the baffling process myself.
It's so great because it's mostly her ideas that I keep finding the opportunity to move into the world. And so it's never ending process of, who can actually move it further, faster. But thank you again.
There's a signature. I can see it.
Yes.
Much gratitude to you all. Be well.
Right.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.